Well, good afternoon, everybody. I know that I stand between you and adult beverages. So I want to thank whoever gave me this crappy little slot. But I have just a few minutes, and I want to actually extend an invitation to you in those few minutes to expand your impact and significance. And I want to connect the dots between conscious capitalism and your whole framework and diversity, equality, and inclusion. And first of all, if you're one of those people, when you hear the words diversity, you go, oh, geez, wow. If you're feeling like that, I'm going to tell you, you don't have to. Because this conversation is about all of us together. In fact, to my white brothers who sit in the audience and say, wow, I don't know, I don't see myself in this equation. I don't think that this is all about me at all. I'm here to tell you that diversity is about the uniqueness of each and every individual, and that everybody in this room is diverse. Incidentally, do we have any Native Americans in the audience? Any Native Americans? Then every one of us is also multicultural. Because if you know the history of this country was built on immigrants. And so this conversation, the courageous conversation that I want to have, is really about how do we get more intentional. I love what you guys stand for, and I'm so happy to be included now as a part of your family. I'm sort of inserting myself as a cousin, okay? But love what you do, and I see such immediate connection between your framework and really some of the mega trends that are going to impact your business. And so I want to tell you a few stories, as everyone else has done today, and then I just want to hopefully give you 3 very practical ways that you could begin to be more intentional around this concept of diversity, equality, and inclusion. So for me, when I hear the words diversity, equality, and inclusion, I jump for joy. And that's because, as Cheryl said, I was born in Mobile, Alabama. Any Alabamians in the room? No, it's okay. I was born in Mobile, Alabama. My parents, who are in the right-hand corner, your left, they were Catholics. So they practiced the rhythm method, and that's why they had 10 children. And so that's just a picture of some of my members of my family. That is the house that I grew up in as a kid, and that is me as a little girl. But do you see the sign that is in the left-hand corner? The sign that says white, and then it says colored. Those signs were real to me. I know what it feels like to be spat on. I know what it feels like to be called the N-word. I know what it feels like to be rejected. And yet I stand here before you saying I believe in humanity, and I believe in the power of people who want to make a difference. Because indeed in my life, I had people who made a powerful impact upon me. And I want to share a brief story about these very special people called the Donaghy's. See, when I integrated into the grade school, people were really not ready. And there are some people who are innovators, some people who are early adopters, some people who are first majorities, and then there's laggers. Well, I went into a school where there was a lot of people who were laggers. They didn't want to have anything to do with bringing black kids into the school system. So much so that there were only 2 families that I was allowed to actually go inside of their home. And one of those 2 families was the Donaghy's. And the girl in the middle is still my childhood friend, Mary Lou. And the Donaghy's told me something that I want to tell you. What happens in the world for each of us is up to us. And so they breathed this notion of possibility into my heart. Everywhere that Mary Lou went, I went. And it was sometimes at their peril. Because back in those days, in the 60s, if a white person was caught with a black person in Mobile, Alabama, then the white person got beaten up. It was not because they were just ready to take on the world, to be beaten down and all of that. It's because in their heart, they had this purpose. And I think in your heart, you have this purpose, and this is what you say about what you stand for, and it is about humanity in so many different ways. And so the Donegies convinced me that whatever I wanted to be in life, that I could be. Of course, my parents and my grandparents played such an instrumental role in my life. My grandmother, I have salt and pepper grandmothers. They're both gone on to heaven now, but my salt pepper grandmothers, one was the product of a slave and a slave master. One was an African and an Indian. And so you look at me and you would immediately think, well, she's a black female. And indeed, I do identify as black, but I also identify as Creole. I'm a dark Creole. Even in the African American race, there's so much confusion about who's better. And we've been taught that the lighter we are, that means that the better that we are. There's so much confusion. So all of us have biases, and all of us have something to learn. There's not one person on the face of this earth that's got this right. So wherever you're starting from, if you don't believe that there is any racism, let me have a conversation with you. If you don't believe that there's any sexism, I could say a thing or two about that. But wherever you are starting from, my invitation to you today is take it to the next level. You are very special people in that you're not going to go down in history as just being successful. You're going to go down in history as being significant. And so as I stand before you, I have hope. I have hope that together, working together, that we can foster an environment, that culture component that you guys talk about, where we love and trust each other, that we can foster an environment where people are accepted and celebrated for their differences. And this picture is why I have hope. In 1982, I gave birth to my first child. And I've been married to that tall guy. If I don't kill him before next July 12th, it'll be 39 years. But hold on, newsflash, I could kill him. But in 1982, my first child was born, and he was born with Down syndrome. And so this dream of equality and of acceptance, it chose me. I didn't choose it. It chose me from the bottom of my heart. And now that diva daughter that we got married off 2 years ago, hallelujah, and that's her wonderful husband who I love. I told him that I'd kill him if he hit her. Okay, in a spirit of love, of course, that's what I told him. But we love him. And I think now daily about what else can I do so that Adam has an equal opportunity. What can I do so that my biracial grandchildren will be embraced in this world? And so I stand before you asking you to think about this whole notion of diversity, equality, and inclusion and make it personal. Because see, the data and all the rhetoric, that's not enough. It's not that people wake up and hate each other on purpose. I don't think that that's it. I think, as Gandhi said, we're fearful. We're fearful of differences because that's not the world that we've lived in. Yet when we tell each other our stories, we find that we have more in common than we have different. And so if we could just lean into the fear and get excited about what this whole world represents, then maybe the data starts to make a little sense. Now, I'm not going to read these next few slides, but I'm going to just share with you that if you have a desire to grow your business, then you must think about who works for you. And you must think about the culture that you've created that embraces this inclusivity, that embraces differences in a very meaningful way. Last year, Michael Bush had the stage, and he talked about, what kind of place you want to create in terms of your employer brand. Do you want to be recognized as a great place to work? And I'm here to tell you that being recognized as a great place to work requires that you build a workforce from top to bottom that mirrors the face of your consumer. In fact, what the data says is that when you don't do this, you are not profitable, that you are not successful, and most importantly, you guys, that you're not sustainable. So the invitation is not just about you. The invitation is so much bigger than any of us, because the legacies that we leave, the things that we do, the decisions that we make are not just going to impact us. You see, they're going to impact generations to come. And that's what I think about, and I invite you to think about. Now, we could debate all day long, but I'll just tell you this. When leaders don't embrace reality, when they don't accept the truth, when they don't challenge themselves to keep up with the times, they go under. And there's three big icons of organizations who at one point had someone just like me standing before them saying, there are mega trends happening that you need to pay attention to. And none of these companies, unfortunately, paid attention. You know, I used to be like everybody else with crumb snatchers, better known as children, in Blockbuster every Friday night. And when people told Blockbuster, look, nobody wants to use a VHS anymore, these things called DVDs are coming along, you know what they said? I don't think that that's going to impact us. We are Blockbuster, right? And then when someone said, what about this little company called Netflix? They said, Netflix? Who is that? And did you not know? Because they refused to accept the truth, they lost not one, but two opportunities to buy Netflix for pennies on the dollar. And each one of these organizations had an opportunity to embrace the change, and they refused to. So I am asking you to think about what is the truth? What do we need to be looking at so that we can expand our impact? Well, the first thing that we need to look at is your consumers are going to change. Whoever you're selling to, whatever customers that you're working with, they're going to become more female and they're going to become more multicultural. And, oh, by the way, their spending power is going to increase. And what about those people that we just love to talk about, baby boomers? We have got to stop talking about these millennials. God help us, right? Do you guys not remember, who all's baby boomers in the room? Come on, be honest. Don't y'all remember when we got 8 tracks in the car? Don't y'all remember that? Right? Do you remember people were like, oh my gosh, this is the end of the world. You were freaks. I'm just telling you, you're a lost generation. And now we look at these millennials, and I'm just going to say the spirit of love, we created them. And so if you don't like them, then go fix them. The second big truth that I really need you to embrace is that there's 4, sometimes 5 generations in the workplace. And so if we're going to bring about key stakeholder value the way that you talk about in your tenets, then we've got to figure a way to make them work together for good. More women are graduating from college than men, so your pool of employees is going to be more female. And guess what? They only want to work for places where they feel welcomed. They want to look at the top of the house, and they want to know that I can aspire because I see someone at the top who looks like me. This is really, really critical, and what I really wish that I had more time to go into, and I just really want to encourage you guys to do this on your own, is to think about how the 4th industrial revolution is going to change everything that we do, the way we live, the way we work, the way we play, what we do for our customers. Artificial intelligence is real. Digitalization is real. And in this world, you have one competitive advantage. And I love the stories that were just told, up here, about the Mod Squad, and just love that whole story. Because what they just convinced us of, if you weren't already convinced, is that your one competitive advantage is your people. And if you don't have people who reflect the face of the consumer on the inside, then how can you innovate? How can you remain relevant? How can you come up with new services and products for them? Well, you can't. But if you embrace this and you go back to your respective scope of responsibilities and you say, you know what? I'm committed. I'm committed to living out these tenets that I say I believe in. I'm conscious. I'm a conscious leader. I'm awake. And you're awake to the truths that are going to shape your future. So I want to offer you now 3 practical things that you can do to move from wherever you are to that next stage. First of all, go get the data. If you don't know where the growth of your organization is going to come from in the next 5 years, go back to your consumer insights, go back to R&D, go back to somebody and say, give me that cut. And you know what you're going to find in that cut? That your consumer is going to be more brown and that your consumer is going to be more female. That is the facts. Now, are you ready to honor that consumer? Are you positioned to do something different? Second point, make it personal and a top 5 priority. And I want to tell you a very quick story as I begin to wrap up here. Years ago, I started this business 18 years ago. After I started the business, a president called me in to coach a gentleman. We're going to call him Wayne. His name was Wayne. And Wayne had one female in his department. Wayne was the head of sales for a very large consumer goods organization. He did not believe that women could handle sales. And he did not hire women because of that bias. And so I was brought in to coach him, and I tried all the data that I possibly could to convince Wayne that he needed to shift his mindset, he needed to shift his story, he needed to become a champion. And every data point that I threw at him, he was just like, whatever, I'm successful, I'm making money. And he was, right? That's the temptation when you're so successful that you're so overinvested that you won't listen to the trends and the changes. And so finally, I noticed on his credenza behind his desk 2 pictures, and they're a picture of his wife and his young daughters. And so I said to him, I said, Wayne, are those your kids? And he goes, oh, yes, those are my girls. And I said, that's beautiful. They're just lovely. And he said, oh, yes, this one's just about to graduate from college, and the other one's going to come into the workforce very soon, and I am really, really excited. And so I leaned into him, and so I said, so Wayne, what are you going to tell that old one, the one that's just getting into the workforce? What are you going to tell her when she comes home and says, Daddy, I can't even get a job interview because the person who is head of the department doesn't think that women can do the job? True story. This man took off his glasses and leaned forward to me. And then I leaned even more forward. And I said, and that second one, that baby girl, what are you going to say to her when she comes home and says, Daddy, I just found out that I make 78 cents for every dollar that my counterpart, my male counterpart does? What are you going to say to her then? And this guy's my witness. Tears came to his eyes. And he said, is that what are you talking about me? I said, you damn Skippy, I'm talking about you, Jack. That's who I'm talking about. And I said, can I just invite you to see that your old thoughts no longer serve you well? So wherever you're starting from, if you're like everybody in here, all of us have been subjected to hearing family members or loved ones or somebody talk disparagingly about somebody who's different. I just ask you to make it personal and challenge your own biases. And then last but not least, I'm asking you guys to leave this conference, to leave this summit with a commitment to make a plan. None of us would ever think about accepting if someone didn't make their performance expectations, if they didn't meet their number. We wouldn't be good with, well, I'm making directional progress. Walmart calls, we're going to discontinue 5 of your SKUs. I don't know how to handle that. What should we do? None of us would tolerate that, right? So my request to you is take these 3 steps seriously. Recognize you are very powerful people. God has given you an extra dose of a lot of stuff. If you really want to take it to the next level, then figure out how you're going to move to become an organization where you do have representation from top to bottom, from every walk of life, from every ethnicity, from every gender. Even start with the Conscious Capitalism board. How can we get more disruptive thinkers on the board, and how can we advance this conversation? And so the last thing I'll leave you with, this is, I promised this to Cheryl, so I can't give it to anybody else, but this is my 4th book. And if you are afraid, if you're sitting there, you're going, I don't know what to do. Okay, get the book, read it, find out. It's not that hard. You guys are smart people, you're gifted people, and I just ask you to remember this, that All of our careers are going to come to an end, every single one of them. And you know what? Nobody's going to remember how many widgets we sold, how many deals we closed, but they'll remember how you treated them. I am 59 years old this year. I think about the Donaghys all the time because they breathe possibility into my heart. And so I breathe that same possibility into your heart. Don't be afraid of this diversity, equality, and inclusion. Embrace it for every single ounce of goodness that it brings to you. Thank you.